The Tampa Bay Buccaneers look like they're ready to repeat in the South, but they got a massive blow with an injury to the best left tackle in the NFL. We'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the data queen, Michelle Majuk. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Josh Allen just carrying the Buffalo Bills, according to a recent ranking of some skill position players. We're going to talk about how Kyler Murray and Michael Penix have enough around them to be judged. But we're going to start with the big news that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be missing a big piece, at least at the beginning of the season. Before we dive in, though, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So some kind of big news for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Left tackle Tristan Wirfs, who has been, you could debate it, but maybe the best left tackle in the NFL for quite some time and a big piece on that offense for the Buccaneers, had knee surgery. Looks like he's going to be out at the beginning of the season. There are estimations out there. Could be a month, couple of weeks, 6 weeks, who knows? But he is going to miss some games at the beginning of the year. And no pun intended here, this is a big blow for the Buccaneers, who really rely on that offense and that offensive line.
They rely on the offense so much, and we'll talk about these offensive pieces. They're absolutely loaded. It's obviously going to be a little bit of a struggle whenever you lose a left tackle, and then you lose a left tackle that is as good as Tristan Wirfs. And then also when your backup currently is Charlie Heck, you do not want him starting games. Yeah, you don't want him starting games at left tackle. Now they have time to bring in maybe another body to try to, just get through that first month until he's back. I'm not too worried about it just because of how many weapons they do have. They should be able to get creative enough where Baker can get the ball out of his hands quickly. Yeah,
it's going to be an adjustment, though. And when you have, I know they promoted the offensive coordinator to try to keep some semblance, but when you have kind of a change and now you're asking a new offensive coordinator, first time calling plays, we got to call it a little bit different. We can't do exactly what we were supposed to do because now we don't have as much time. It is going to be a task for the new offensive coordinator and for Baker Mayfield to kind of play a little bit different than maybe what they want to do necessarily. But I'm with you. I don't think, and another big factor for me is, I don't think anybody else in the NFC South scares me enough to where I think even if the Buccaneers come out slow, like 2-3 or 2-2 or 3-3, that they're not still just going to win this division. It's not something that I think will prevent them from hitting their goals if they want to, because I just don't trust the Falcons, who we'll talk about in a minute, the Panthers, and certainly not the Saints.
Yeah, there's no one in this division that worries you. I guess it would be the Falcons, and unfortunately, they do have to play them right at the beginning of the year, so they won't have Tristan Wirfs. But the Falcons don't ever have a pass rush, right? I know they spent their first rounder on Jalen Walker, so maybe he'll do something, but they have a couple teams that don't have great pass rushes, in the Falcons and the Jets, but then they have to face the Texans and the Eagles in there in the top 4 weeks too, who have amazing pass rushes. So if they can pull out 2-2, I think they're completely fine, by the time Wirfs gets back, because the division's so weak.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like you mentioned, Wirfs is one player. They are loaded on offense. They are absolutely loaded. And because of all the different weapons, there's talks in Tampa Bay, especially on Locked On Bucs, about a potential NFC championship.
For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it meant emerging as the top team in the NFC. The simulation showed that the Bucs have over a 70% chance to make the playoffs, a nearly 25% chance to win in the divisional round, a 13.5% chance to win the NFC championship game, and a 6.98% chance to win the Super Bowl. All in all, the supercomputer deemed the Bucs the most likely NFC champion in 2025. They have the fourth best odds in the league to win the title and the best odds of any team in the NFC.
Now, we're going to need to see the defense step up in a big way, but the offensive talent that they have, like Bill Barnwell from ESPN did a recent skill position player ranking that we're going to reference throughout the show, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 7th, up from 13th, and Michelle, both of us behind the scenes before the show, we agreed that's far too low. Their roster is stacked.
I don't know how, because they're ranking them based on their wide receivers, running backs, and tight end. And even in the description, they say that they're weighing the wide receivers more heavily than the other positions. Well, I mean, think about this wide receiver group. It's Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, who is my favorite wide receiver coming out of the draft class. And then you have McMillan from last year, Jalen McMillan.
Started blowing up.
Who had a great second half of his rookie season. And now that you're fourth wide receiver, I can't think of a more deeper, more stacked wide receiver group. And they have a fine tight end in Cade Otton. And I love Bucky Irving as a running back. So it's shocking they're 7. I would have a really hard time putting them anywhere further than 4. I get their 1, 2, and 3. It's the Eagles, the Lions, and the Bengals. I could still put the Buccaneers over the Bengals. I think I could make a case for that. But anywhere further than 4, that's just insane to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I honestly would have them over San Francisco. I like their group better than San Francisco's right now as things stand with all the change that we've seen in San Francisco. And when you have that kind of not only weaponry, but you have that kind of depth where even if a Chris Godwin goes out, even if Mike Evans misses a couple of weeks at his age, he's prone to do, they just have so much there. And that running back group, super overrated. I'm so high on Bucky Irving this year and what he's able to do. And I just want to remind people, I know that Rachaad White didn't turn into the fantasy stud that maybe a lot of people wanted him to be because Bucky Irving showed up and now it's Bucky Irving's backfield, it feels like. But Rachaad White is a very solid player too. So it's like Sean Tucker, we're going to see if that pans out. I liked him coming out of the draft, but they just have depth, not only talent at the top. And when you look, again, I bring it back to that division, there is good talent on the Falcons, which we'll talk about here in a second, but Carolina can't come close to that. I don't think the Saints come close to that either. And with the other things that aren't skill positions like coaching and quarterback, Tampa Bay is just so far and away the favorite to win that division for me.
The fact that Jalen McMillan isn't even going to get a chance to see the field all that much as the wide receiver 4 if everyone stays healthy is just wild because he led the league in receiving touchdowns from weeks 14 through 18, caught 7 of them. He went 5 straight games to end the season with a touchdown. That was the second longest streak by a rookie since 1970, trailing only Hall of Fame Randy Moss, who had 9 straight games in his rookie season. But what he did last year towards the end of the year, and now all of a sudden they don't even need him to, continue his dominance or step up or grow. If he does, cool. But that's not even what they need because they're so stacked everywhere else. They're definitely over the 49ers for me. Not a single thought about it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now, the Rams are tough because Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua is very good. But honestly, outside of that, give me the Bucs too. I would take the Bucs over the Rams too. But regardless, these are teams at the top who have it made with great supporting cast that we're all debating. Now, there are some other teams who may not be quite as good as this, but have some very good supporting casts in the top half of the league with quarterbacks who need to prove that they can get the job done. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're into baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you're already following all the action this summer. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I personally love FanDuel. Number one, the same game parlays. So much fun to add a bunch of little things into a big time bet to get great value. And tracking your same game parlays on FanDuel looks absolutely incredible. It's so much fun to follow along. They have new daily promotions every single day. Of course, they are daily, but it keeps the app super fresh and super fun as well. Easy to use, fast to pay out, anything you could ever want. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today and make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Michelle, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Looking at some skill position rankings here is kind of a through line, but we get the Tristan Wirfs story with the Bucs. They should be good to go. Now, some guys who I'm not quite as certain that they are good to go are one guy at the very beginning of his career and one guy who's kind of maybe getting towards the end of it, depending on how long things go. And we'll start with Kyler Murray from the Arizona Cardinals. So in this ranking of skill position groups around the quarterbacks, not including offensive line, of course, the Arizona Cardinals were 15th, according to Bill Barnwell. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, of course, two great young tight ends for that money. James Conner is a great running back. Michael Wilson, I think, is a little bit underrated. Trey Benson could even be a guy who's a considerable handcuff this year. But the big questions with the Cardinals, to me, come with Kyler Murray. Because if the Cardinals have a good enough team around Kyler Murray, then it's time for him to be a difference maker. And they talked about that recently on the Arizona Cardinals Squad Show.
When it comes down to it in 2025, does he win more games for the Cardinals than he loses for them? And that comes down to his floor, not his ceiling, because we know what his ceiling is. We've seen it. Very few quarterbacks in the NFL can reach the ceiling that Kyler Murray has. But this offense looks like the bottom three offense, way too much since Kyler took over in 2019. So for me, good enough. What the make it year is 10 plus wins. His ceiling rises, and he is the reason why they win much more than the reason why he loses, especially during the last 8 weeks of the year.
Jamil?
Yeah, I agree with Alex as far as when it comes to the wins. I think we want to see them get 10 wins. And for me, what I would look for out of my quarterback is, can you manage the game? Don't lose the game for me. Can you manage the game to where, we can make a play at the end of the game and come out with a win? And if you've done that and we don't come out with the win, I can live with that. I don't know that I want to call it a make or break. I do think that you want to have the assurance, though, that you can lean on this guy in the future.
Hey, shout out Jamil Douglas, former NFL offensive lineman on the Cardinal Squad Show. Love to see that, get that insight. But I do think it's a make or break season. Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like, Kyler Murray has enough. He's got a top 5 wide receiver. He's, in the draft. He was drafted top 5 in the draft. That's what I'm saying. I saw that reaction. I was, oh, wait a minute. That didn't come out. But Trey McBride, what is he now? A top 7, top 8 tight end? Like, if we're ranked, he was very good last season. I think they have good pieces on the offensive line now as well. Paris Johnson Jr. making a jump forward. I guess I'm not saying that they're 15th. All right. I'm not saying that the Cardinals have some incredible supporting cast like the one we're about to talk about. But I think they have enough where Kyler Murray has enough around him where he should elevate this team and they should make the playoffs. Like, I'm looking at Kyler Murray to be the guy who, like they said, wins them games, not just as a game manager for him. He should be that.
Okay, but I think 15's a little high for the Cardinals because let's say Marvin Harrison Jr.'s name was called Marvin Williams. Let's just say that's his name. And last year, after going that early in the draft, he has that type of season. He ranks nearly pretty much dead last among wide receivers in separation per route run. Really struggled in that area. And then your other wide receivers then are Zay Jones and Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. Yeah, Trey McBride's great. He's a really, really good receiving tight end. You said top 8. I've put him top 5 receiving tight end in the league.
Enough.
James Conner's I really like James Conner. I think he's highly underrated, but it's not like James Conner's not going to win you a bunch of games, or he's not one to break off a ton of huge plays, right? He's just consistent, and he's a decent enough pass catcher as well. I don't think this group is anything special, and I do think their offensive coordinator is straight trash. I'll say it. Drew Petzing.
Yeah.
I think he's a terrible play caller. I think he gets nobody open. I think he helps nothing. I'm not trying to excuse everything away from Kyler Murray because he has not done enough in his career. But I don't actually like his supporting cast all that much. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have to step up big time for this to be an actual 15th ranked best group around him.
I guess maybe I'm a believer in Marvin Harrison Jr. I
am too. I am too. I don't want to say I'm not, but
I guess I agree with you that it's, like I said, it's not an incredible supporting cast, like top 10, like we're going to talk about in the next guy that we talk about. But I just think that it's good enough to where they have enough that if Kyler Murray elevates them, like a former number 1 overall pick should, then they should be a playoff team, whether that be wild card, low-end wild card or not. Like last year, they were competitive. I think they're better this year. I just want to see Kyler Murray be spectacular and good, and I just feel like he's just been washed away so much that I do think it's a make or break year for how we look at Kyler Murray. And maybe some people are already past this. Some people are already like, Kyler Murray's not a superstar quarterback. He's just a game manager at best. He's Brock Purdy with a higher draft pick.
Excuse me. Like, Brock Purdy's not a game manager.
Okay. Fair enough. But you know how the conversation goes. I think my view of Kyler Murray will be dependent on this year of, do I think he's a guy who you could win a Super Bowl with if the team was good enough around him? And right now, I think the answer is no. And I think that we need to see him elevate that team. But outside of Kyler Murray, totally different situation. But Michael Penix with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons in this supporting cast rankings got a top 10 ranking number 9. All right. And I think that they could maybe even be higher than that. Like, I would probably put them over the Baltimore Ravens with all that they have. I think the Atlanta Falcons with a good quarterback would truly challenge the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the division. But I don't know if Michael Penix is a good quarterback yet. And I guess whether it's fair or not, I am going to judge Michael Penix, I don't want to say definitively, but like my view of Michael Penix is going to be pretty set after this season because I think he's got enough around him. He was a polished quarterback coming out who had a ton of experience. Being ready to go right away was one of the big things with Michael Penix, that he could come in right away, which made it even weirder that the Falcons did what they did because he was a pro-ready guy, not a development guy like a McCarthy was or whatever. But like I just think Michael Penix has so much great stuff around him that how he does this year is who I think that he is.
Absolutely. I mean, he has everything he needs. He's not going into a bad situation. He has, I know in these rankings, they're not including offensive line, but he has a good enough offensive line.
Yes, he does.
He has a good coaching staff. He has an amazing running back to lean on. So he doesn't have to do a huge, the team's not leaning on him, right? When he made those 3 starts last year, Bijan Robinson took over. I do think Bijan Robinson might be the best running back, like overall running back in the league. I know what Saquon Barkley did last year, and he's amazing. But I think Bijan Robinson can have that type of year too, if he gets the workload and they just lean on him. And then he has a great wide receiver 1 and Drake London with fine assets outside of that too. So yes, what Michael Penix Jr. does this year doesn't mean that's his ceiling and he can never get better. But if he's terrible, I don't think then we have hope for him moving forward.
100%. I agree 100%. If he's not good, it'll be a 5-alarm fire because it's like, how much better of a situation could you want? Like you said, they're not ranking the offensive line in this thing, but the Falcons' offensive line is top half in the NFL at minimum. It's not a bad offensive line, and where offensive line play is so bad with some teams around the NFL. If you're a Michael Penix, you got a year to learn behind Kirk Cousins. You got your feet wet with a little experience. You have top 10 draft picks at all the big skill position spots. You have a decent offensive line. I don't think the coaching staff is awful. We need to see more from Zach Robinson, quite honestly. My guy Aaron Freeman wants to see him be a little more creative this year from Locked On Falcons, but who Michael Penix is this year, I'm not going to give him a lot of grace, I guess. Like, we need to see it. He should be ready. But with that being said, a guy that has shown it, is ready, is Josh Allen. And if you look at these rankings and where they have the Buffalo Bills, it makes what Josh Allen's doing even more impressive. All right, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL, looking at some skill positions around the NFL and some conversations about how these teams should do based on that. Before we finish things off, talking about the Buffalo Bills and another contending team in the NFC, do want to thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camp gets closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But The Buffalo Bills came in at number 28 in this ranking of skill positions. The Buffalo Bills are consistently a top 4 team in the NFL at the end of the season. They're a good offense, and last year they were a phenomenal offense, according to our guys over at Locked On Bills.
Times, and I'll say it again, I think the Bills' 2024 offense has an argument, a heck of an argument, that it was the best in Buffalo Bills history. They scored the most touchdowns, and Josh Allen was unbelievable. And I think where I get excited is for some of these common sense things that can evolve and improve to make an elite offense even more elite. And so I think there's plenty of opportunity. I love the continuity top to bottom, whether it's personnel or coaching offensively. And again, continuity for continuity's sake is not necessarily a good thing, but when it was very successful, it's good to bring a lot of it back. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for this Bills offense.
If that's the best Bills offense in the history of the franchise, a team that's been to the Super Bowl 4 times, and they were ranked 24th in this article last year coming in and dropped to 28th with the moves that they've made. My question is, how good is Josh Allen then? Because that sort of success with that supporting cast, that's pretty impressive.
Josh Allen's so stinking good. He really is. He's
Right.
my favorite quarterback in the league. He's my favorite quarterback to watch. I think he's right up there with Patrick Mahomes. I know Mahomes has the Super Bowls, but I think if Josh Allen had Andy Reid, he would as well. And that defense that Mahomes has got to play with. But Josh Allen, the fact that he did what he did last year, while Khalil Shakir was his top target,
Crazy.
Dalton Kincaid did not step up the way people thought he was going to. And Keon Coleman, their early second round pick, the first pick the second round 2 years ago, it hasn't really turned out. They cannot find a replacement for Stephon Diggs, but it seems to be working out because last year Josh Allen was so good with distributing the ball to everyone. There was 8 players on the Bills last year that had at least 30 targets. Like he's just really good, and it seems to help his interceptions when he's spreading it around and not forcing it to a guy like Stephon Diggs who's like begging for the ball.
100%. Now, I do think at some point, if they really want to make the jump and get that Super Bowl for Josh Allen, I think they're going to have to find a way to get that top tier weapon. And I think that Dalton Kincaid never really turned into that, and people thought that would be the case. And like you said, Keon Coleman, we're still waiting to see it. Will he ever be able to become that? And the rest of it is just okay. Khalil Shakir is a good chain mover, but I don't think he's a guy who makes plays that will change football games. He is just going to be good when Josh Allen is good. So I still think I look at the Bills, and while Josh Allen is so great and that spreading it around, you're right, might get the best out of him, if they don't have a true stud at some point just to be that number one guy, I just don't think it's going to be enough to get them to the promised land.
Yeah, their defense is going to have to really step up in the playoffs, which they haven't done. And I mean, when you look at this wide receiver core, it's really uninspiring. But it was last year, too, going into it, and their offense was so good. But Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, Laviska Shenault, a lot of guys here who flamed out with their former team. It's not great. They're asking for Josh Allen to pretty much carry everything again. I think what would be huge for them if Dalton Kincaid could, like, maybe his second year was just ruined by those knee injuries. I don't really think so because he didn't actually get injured till week 11 or something, and he still stunk before that. But someone needs to step up in this group for them to be true, like, once they get into the AFC Championship, to actually win that game.
Yeah, and I think we need to keep our eye on Buffalo as a team that could be a big-time buyer in the deadline. They're always a team that we got to look at for that because they're close, but, somebody really, really big as a weapon on offense were to become available, they have to be first in line. I think that's why anytime there's a conversation about any kind of big trade for like a wide receiver, it's always Buffalo that we're having discussions about. But another team that stood out to you on the rankings here is the Washington Commanders. The Commanders jumped up from 26th this time last year all the way up to 13th, and I know that did catch your eye.
I think that's just too high for them. I don't know if they're evaluating Deebo Samuel way too much. I'm a big 49ers fan. I think Deebo Samuel's done. He's cooked. He's slow. He never was able really to separate And his best thing has always been yards after the catch, but also Kyle Shanahan was so smart in getting him in the open space and utilizing him. I don't think Deebo Samuel really upgrades this Commanders offense. So still you have Terry McLaurin. They lost a couple of their second and third wide receivers last year, not massive losses, but again, only added Deebo. Still have Zach Ertz, who's on the much older side, and their running backs are less than inspiring to me too. Brian Robinson Jr., fun story coming into the league, but he's just a guy. Austin Eckler's aging, so I do think they're ranked too high.
I agree. You know who a team that I think should be ranked higher than them is the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially if we're heavily weighting wide receivers. Here, I just really like Jacksonville's group. They're stable of running backs. Brian Thomas Jr., I think, is going to be a clear top 10 wide receiver in the NFL after the season. What Travis Hunter could do early on, I don't know. I guess I'm really intrigued. That's a team that really stood out to me. It's like I would put them over the Commanders. But I'm with you there. They need to get the Terry McLaurin thing figured out. And I like the general philosophy of what they did to kind of stack up and go after it now with Jaden Daniels being on his rookie deal and proving that he's worth building around. But I just don't know if Deebo Samuel was the guy to do that. They didn't pay a ton to do it, but I'm with you. I don't know that they took some massive jump from, if we're just counting wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, Deebo Samuel doesn't take you from 26 all to 13. I'm sorry.
He might actually make it worse, and I'm not kidding. Last year when the 49ers tried to utilize Deebo Samuel, they were worse for it. That's just plain and simple.
Yeah.
Maybe he rejuvenates and has extra energy this year, but I don't think the addition of Deebo Samuel should move them up at all. Especially not however many spots they got moved up.
And I think that to get the best out of him, like you said, the way that Kyle Shanahan used him, if that is out of the wheelhouse of what you want to do as an offense, now you're kind of, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like, hey, we want to get Deebo going, but we're going away from stuff that we do well. So if Cliff Kingsbury, who has been pretty creative throughout his career, can make what makes Deebo best part of their offense, which in theory looks like it could be possible, then I could see it helping. But yeah, not enough to move them, double up the spots they were before. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk, as we tell you every single episode. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all.